can you see my screen correctly?
Yeah, we can see it. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank you for inviting us to be here today sharing our research. My name is Pedro Cuesta from University of Alcalá, and my colleague is Pablo Gutiérrez from University of León from Spain. We are going to talk about our research related to perception of advertising for healthy food on social media, effect of attitude of consumer response. First of all, I would like to say that in literature, there is a variety of terms describe healthy food. For example, in Japan, healthy food refers, one moment, sorry, I have a problem here. Yeah, sorry, because I can see my screen with the photos. I was said that in literature there is a variety of terms to describe healthy food. For example, in Japan, healthy food refers to foods for specific health uses, so they can be considered to have a medical application. On the other hand, in China, the term functional foods refers to food that contain additives that aim to reduce body fat, aid in digestion or other body functions. In Taiwan and Europe, healthy food refers to food that contain a specific nutrient or produce certain positive health effects. And this last term of healthy food is generally accepted in the literature, and we have adopted for our research. This figure shows the model that we want to explain today. The objective of this research is to know which variables influence the consumer response through intention motivated by their attitude to the value of healthy food, which in turn is motivated both by internal stimuli, the utilitarian eating value and the hedonic eating value, and by external stimuli through social media advertising value. The first part of the research model is to explain the social media advertising value. The social media advertising value of healthy food refers to the individual subject value of the potential consumer that through online advertising incorporate users, interaction, and any content they share. The theory of the Dukoff advertising value model considers that the antecedent variables of social media advertising value are informativeness, entertainment, credibility, and irritation. And now I'm going to explain these four concepts. First, informativeness in advertising is considered to be the ability to describe the characteristics and benefits of alternative products in a way that attempts to match consumer needs and wants by making the market more efficient. Additionally, information from social media advertising may become viral as consumers learn from the experience of other consumers by sharing information among their contents. Secondly, entertainment is defined as how interesting the social media advertising is to the consumer. Because of the interactive style of social networks, users expect entertainment from their advertising content. Entertainment in advertising creates an emotional link between the brand and the consumer response, so the user naturally plays the role of first evaluator of the advertising content in the social networks. In third place, credibility refers to how truthful or believable the consumer perceives the product information included in the advertising content to be. These types of reaction of advertising occur at the level of mental perception, and they lead to the formation of trust or distrust in the advertising message. In the case of credibility of advertising on social networks, this concept focuses on product information advertised in social networks rather than on trust in the platform, links, websites, or people who are managing the execution of that advertising. And finally, irritation can be considered as the way in which a consumer feels displeased for personal or social reason or due to the repetition of the digital advertising, which causes saturation. Consumers can easily be irritated by digital advertising. They are consequently less likely to be persuaded by advertisement they consider annoying, offensive, manipulate disappointing, or dishonest, which does generate less perceived value. And this is the second part of our research model. Attitude is a feeling which is a person learned predisposition to display a specific behavior or have a positive or negative thought. It's an essential factor in predicting intention in consumer behavior. Healthy food provides benefits that are utilitarian or hedonic in nature. Therefore, attitude has been measured in this study from this double perspective. Consequently, the utilitarian eating value and the hedonic eating value are considered to be the antecedents of attitude to this type of product. The utilitarian eating value is made up of the functions provided by healthy foods, such as their nutritional composition and other health-related aspects, whereas the hedonic eating value is created by the experience of the product. Intention is the most important and immediate indicator of people's behaviors, since the assumption is that people do what they intend to do and don't do what they don't intend. Intention are indicators of behavior, but are also mediators of attitudes in the relationship to the behavioral response. Therefore, attitudes has been identified as a factor influencing the prediction of adoption of consumer intention. For example, a negative attitude provokes an unfavorable consumer behavior response. Consequently, consumer response is the result of consumer attitude. In summary, this will be the hypothesis that we want to demonstrate in our research. The hypothesis one are related to informativeness, entertainment, credibility, and irritation have a positive influence on social media advertising value. Hypothesis 2 is related to social media advertising value has a positive influence on attitude. Hypothesis 3 is related to utilitarian eating value and hedonic eating value have a positive influence on attitude. Hypothesis 4 and 5 say that attitude has a positive influence on intention and on consumer response. And finally, hypothesis 6 says that intention in healthy food has a positive influence on consumer response. The methodology of the research is based on a cross-sectional described study using primary data from a questionnaire answered by a representative sample of the Spanish population during the month of June 2020. The total number of valid questionnaire collected was more than 2,000, implying a sample error of 2.22%. The questionnaire covers the 10 constructs of the model proposed: informativeness, entertainment, credibility, irritation, social media advertising, utilitarian eating value, hedonic eating value, attitude, intention, consumer response, which a total of 34 items based on an exhaustive review of the existing literature. The scale used for these items was a 5-point Likert type response format in which respondents could rate the items from 1, completely disagree, to 5, completely agree. And now my colleague Pablo Gutiérrez will explain the results and the conclusion of our research.
Hello, thank you very much. For the results, we use a method. This method is structural equation modeling. Specifically, we use partial least square. It's a kind of this structural equation modeling. And the idea is that we are going to have different complex variables, and these complex variables that my colleagues explained before are composed by different items. It's not only one item. We can create a complex variable with only one item. This is the reason because we are going to use complex variables. And the useful of these kind of methods is that you are going to create the relation between this complex variable. And specifically, we are talking about partial least square. You are going to get a score. And we use a scale between 1 and 5, and we are going to get a score from different complex variable between this between 1 and 5. Okay, and then if we analyze, we have here the results about their relationship with the variables, and these relations are focused on hypotheses that we know now. And these relations, we put by arrows the relation and the importance of the relation. If you have a big arrow and you have a more important relation, and the arrows that are in gray and they are very small, we are going to find that the relation is weak or is not relevant or is not significant. Okay. Then we can see that if we're talking about social media advertising value, the variables that are important or the variables that are influenced on this complex variable or Latin variable, that is the exactly name, are informativeness and credibility. And then entertainment and irritation, they are not relevant for this variable. The consumer variable, if we are talking about social media and healthy food, the values that are important for consumers are the information and the credibility. Okay, these are going to be the factors or antecedents that are really important in this Dukov model. That is a model of author, that the name is Dukov, trying to develop this value for the consumer. I'm going to repeat that we are talking about social media and healthy food. And in the other hand, we have that for us it was important that social media advertising value is going to be very important. They are going to influence, or social media advertising value is going to influence in a very, very important relation to attitude. Okay, and we're talking about attitude. Only the utilitarian eating value is going to be important. If we are going to try to make a difference between utilitarian and hedonic, we can talk about rational or emotional eating value. Okay, and then the emotional relation or the emotional attitude is not relevant if we are talking about healthy food, mainly because perhaps we are talking about this kind of product. And finally, the relation between attitude, intention, and consumer response is logical, and we have important relations, and more or less is the idea that we have when we proposed this model. In the next slide, we can see the different scores. Next slide, please. This kind of method is not only important because we are going to get the relationship, we are going to get the scores, and it's important because the high scores, when you have a high score between 1 and 5, because it's the scale what we use, it's difficult to improve these scores. It's not the case in these variables because you are very close to 5. It's not really interesting to try to develop any kind of action or strategies for trying to develop these variables. More or less, we have values around 3, and we can try to develop, improve different values or relations. It's not a problem, and we know which relations are more important. And in the case of social media advertising, that perhaps the most important part in this model, informativeness and credibility are really relevant. Okay. In the next slide, please. We have the hypothesis, and of course, entertainment has a possible influence on social media advertising value in healthy food and in social media advertising. Is rejected like irritation, influences on social media advertising, and hedonic eating value in healthy food. We are talking about attitude, is rejected. This is not really, we were talking about background and literature, and perhaps we proposed these relations, but it's not really a problem that these hypotheses are rejected, because it's very important what kind of product and what kind of media we are using. Or if we are talking about social media and we are talking about healthy food, then it's possible that happen this kind of situation, that some of the factors, some of the antecedents could be reacting. And this is the situation. The question perhaps is why these antecedents about social media advertising mainly, or antecedent of attitude are rejected. Next slide, we are going to present the conclusion, and we are going to talk about why we think the most important variables for social media advertising value are informativeness and credibility. And then the situation that is irritation is rejected like a variable that is influencing in social media advertising. And the explanation will be that the sample that we use click on social media advertising, they are interesting on advertising that we asked before on them. Perhaps the reason that they haven't got irritation in social media when they are looking for where they are using advertising in the social media about healthy food. That this is the other part. The most important thing, or the most important issue about healthy food is information. And this is the reason that entertainment is not so important like informativeness in this case, because they are worried about credibility and information, like values that really are important for consumer when they are looking for or they are receiving advertising in social media. Okay, this is the reason that then if you want to develop an interesting or a good campaign in social media about or healthy food, the most important part are credibility and information. Okay, the other part is that rational and emotional attitude. Utilitarian healthy eating value is really relevant for attitude, but not hedonic healthy eating. In other way, information or rational part is more important than the emotional part. We are talking about attitude, focus on healthy food. The idea is when you are, if we are talking about young people, this situation is changing. We didn't explain here the division between age groups, but young people usually is more worried about emotional part of the attitude. But usually when you are not so young, you are more focused on health and you are more focused on rational reason because you are going to you are going to eat healthy food. And then here at the moment, an overall model with all kind of age groups, the most important element for attitude or variable that is influencing on attitude is utilitarian or rational. We are going to use this name done, healthy eating value. Okay. Finally, about all this model, we would like to affirm that social media advertising value, the value that receive the consumer for the advertising, is going to influence in consumer response. And really, we found that this influence is through attitude and intentions. Social network is a different environment when consumer can get a lot of information, they can discuss, they can create contents, and then this is the reason because we try to develop this model in this social media, because we think that it's very important to know what happened in this new technological environment. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any question, we'll try to answer. Thank you.